The afternoon sun slanted through dusty windows, painting long shadows across the hospital floor. The sound of beeping monitors echoed down the hallway, blending with the faint scent of antiseptic. In room 214, a man in his late 30s lay weak against the pillows. His name was Daniel. Once strong, once full of life, he now looked like a shell of who he used to be. His arms, once muscular from long days of work, were now thin, his face pale, but next to him sat his son, Jacob, 7 years old, small hands clutching a drawing he had made for his father. The boy was sunshine in human form, with a gap-toothed smile and eyes that always searched for hope, even when things felt hopeless. Daniel watched his boy with tired eyes. He had been battling illness for months, and the hospital bills had swallowed every penny he had saved. He couldn't work anymore, and the weight of failing his son pressed down on him harder than the sickness itself. One afternoon, as the nurses changed his IV, Daniel glanced toward the door. There she was again, the woman. Quiet, unnoticed, pushing her cart with a mop and bucket. She moved silently, almost invisibly, scrubbing the floors, wiping the windows, changing the trash bags. Most people didn't even look at her. She was just the cleaning lady. Her name was Maria. She was in her 40s, with tired eyes that told stories no one bothered to ask about. She had been working double shifts to support her daughter, who waited for her every night at a small apartment across town. But what no one knew was that every time Maria passed room 214, she slowed down. She looked in, not long, not obvious, but just enough to see Daniel and his boy. And something inside her stirred. She recognized the struggle in his eyes, the silent battles he was fighting. She knew that look. She had lived it once. That evening, after finishing her shift, Maria went home. Her daughter, Sophia, was already waiting at the door. Only 12 years old, Sophia was bright and gentle, the kind of girl who could notice sadness in a stranger's smile. "Mom," she said softly, "you look tired again." Maria forced a smile, and kissed her for it. "I'm okay, Mija." "How was school?" But Sophia wasn't convinced. She followed her mother into the small kitchen, watching as Maria placed the last of their groceries on the counter, just bread, some eggs, and a carton of milk. Sophia knew money was tight, but she also knew her mom's heart. That night, as Maria tried to sleep, she couldn't shake the image of Daniel and his son. She thought of Jacob's little hands holding that crayon drawing. She thought of the way the boy leaned close to his father, as if his love alone could keep him alive. The next day, Maria made a decision. She took Sophia with her to the hospital after school. "You'll help me today," she said. Together, they pushed the cart down the hallway. Sophia watched her mother work, wiping tables, changing linens, and mopping floors. But when they passed room 214, Sophia noticed her mother pause. Inside, Jacob was talking excitedly to his father, showing him the latest picture he'd drawn. His voice carried out into the hallway. "Daddy, look. I drew us at the park. When you get better, we can go again, right?" Daniel tried to smile, but his eyes watered. He nodded, but deep down he wasn't sure if that day would ever come. And then it happened. As Maria bent to wring out her mop, Jacob's eyes caught hers. The boy stopped mid-sentence, pointing eagerly toward the door. His little voice rang out, "Daddy, look. It's her." Everyone turned. Maria froze, startled. Daniel looked confused. Jacob ran to the doorway. "Daddy, that's the lady who always smiles at me. Every time she passes by, she waves." "That's her, Daddy." Maria's face flushed. She hadn't realized he'd noticed. Daniel, with effort, sat up a little straighter. "You've been waving to my boy." Maria swallowed hard. I didn't mean to intrude. I know how it feels, to fight battles no one sees. Sometimes, a smile is all we have." For the first time in weeks, Daniel's lips curved into a real smile. "Thank you," he whispered, but Maria wasn't done. That evening, after her shift, she and Sophia stopped at a small market. With what little money she had, Maria bought fresh fruit and a few snacks she knew Jacob would love. The next day, she left the small bag outside room 214 with a note that simply said, "For Jacob, from a friend." When Jacob found it, his eyes lit up. He ran to his father, holding the fruit like it was treasure. "Daddy, look. She brought this for me." Day after day, Maria continued. Sometimes it was a snack, sometimes a coloring book, sometimes just a folded paper crane Sophia had made. She and her daughter brought pieces of hope into that hospital room, quiet, simple acts of kindness. Weeks passed. Slowly, Daniel's health improved. His treatments began working. His body grew stronger. And though doctors credited medicine, Daniel always told Jacob, it wasn't just the treatment. It was hope. And that hope came from them. One crisp autumn morning, Daniel was finally discharged. He walked out of the hospital holding Jacob's hand, weak but smiling. As they passed the lobby, Jacob suddenly pulled free and ran across the room. "Daddy, wait. I have to say goodbye." Daniel followed, confused, until he saw who Jacob was running toward. Maria and Sophia stood by the exit, cleaning supplies in hand. Jacob threw his arms around Maria's waist. "Thank you," he said simply. "You made Daddy better." Maria's eyes filled with tears. She looked at Daniel, who stood silently, overwhelmed. He stepped forward, his voice trembling. "You don't know what you've done for us. You gave my son joy when I couldn't. You gave me the strength to fight. You reminded me that even in the darkest places kindness still exists." Maria wiped her tears with the back of her hand. "You reminded me too," she whispered, "that even the smallest gesture can mean everything." Sophia reached into her backpack and handed Jacob a final paper crane. On its wing, she had written the single word, hope. Daniel took his son's hand again, holding the crane gently. "We'll never forget you," he promised, and as they walked out into the morning light, Daniel knew that this chapter of his life, this painful, uncertain chapter, would forever be marked by the quiet kindness of a cleaning lady and her daughter. Sometimes, heroes don't wear capes. Sometimes, they carry mops and buckets. And sometimes, the smallest hands like Sophia's leave the biggest imprints on hearts. So if you ever doubt the power of kindness, remember this story. A smile, a gesture, a single act can change everything. Because in the end, kindness is the one